Answer with Dan and Amy. Continue next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Wealth Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings at 10.
You want more than just the headlines? Find out what's going on and what it means with me, Dennis Prager, this morning at 11, right here on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan, and in for Amy this morning, Kristen McQuarrie, she of the Chicago Tribune editorial board, and the castigations of President Trump in advance of the same gun control and gun banning policies that have been banned by Democrats for generations, bubbles over on some networks that also indulge in the unrestrained feeding of their appetites. Good example? Nicole Wallace on MSNBC, who said this of President Trump as he makes his way to El Paso today.
What do you do when certainly the last Republican president fought for, sought, and it's not ideal, but had 44% of Latino vote? It was so politically powerful inside the last Republican administration. President Obama used the power of the presidency to try to pass comprehensive immigration reform with the Latino community, Latino leaders at the table. You now have a president, as you said, talking about exterminating Latinos.
Exterminating Latinos.
Wow. Where is that even coming from?
Nicole Wallace tweeted out after, I guess it was pointed out to her, she had uttered the phrase exterminating Latinos, because of course it was accidental. Nicole Wallace, I misspoke about Trump calling for an extermination of Latinos. My mistake was unintentional and I'm sorry. And then, of course, Trump's constant assault on people of color and his use of the word invasion to describe the flow of immigrants is intentional and constant, as was your use of the phrase extermination of Latinos, as is your use of the phrase immigrant to describe people trying to come to this country illegally, isn't it, Nicole? But I got to tip my hat to Scott Adams, the Dilbert cartoon creator, who responded to Nicole Wallace's apology, saying, "Apology accepted. Likewise, I would also like to take this opportunity to apologize to anyone I've accidentally accused in public of ethnic genocide." Accidents will happen. See, this is the argument that the left has had. She mentioned Obama. She mentioned George W. Bush because he's at a safe distance now. She would have been the crowd calling him Hitler back in 2002 and 2004, when we were safely away from 9/11 to renew their calls about him being a racist and a Nazi and so on and so forth, which the left refers to every Republican president in that fashion. But this is the left's long-running claim. Support Trump, oppose Obama. In both cases, the only basis for opposing Obama, supporting Trump, is racism. You're racist. And there's a great Joe Epstein piece in the Wall Street Journal this week on this topic. What would we do without the word racism? Wall Street Journal, as I mentioned. Without the word racism, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton would be out of business. Cory Booker could not construct a sentence. Ta-Nehisi Coates would have to write musical comedy. And the so-called squad of congresswomen would have to argue for the strength of their actual policies, which might not be so easy. Among the race mongers in the current day, no one is safe. Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, while not flat out called racist, have recently had racism imputed to them and by members of their own political party. Epstein goes on, I can think of no more devastating insult than being called a racist. In a mere 6 letters, the word suggests one is tyrannical, vicious, stupid, and cruel. I should rather be called a coward, a cheat, a liar, or anything else you happen to have in your personal arsenal of invective. The others allow for the possibility of redemption. Racism, short of death, does not. And so this is why the left uses it repeatedly and unapologetically, because it conveys shame. It marginalizes, or at least in the minds of some, marginalizes the person who is being accused. So you don't have to deal with the substance of what he or she is saying. And it's the path to power.
Well, and when you, how do you make a lie true? You say it again and again and again and again and again. And I just wonder if this Nicole Wallace misspeaking is going to be like a lot of other things that Trump is accused of, where it just becomes part of the vernacular. People actually maybe think that there is some extermination policy given the Holocaust descriptions.
Yeah,
I mean,
I appreciate that AOC is not apologizing for calling the border detention facilities concentration camps. She really means it, and Nicole Wallace really meant what she said too. Uh, thus the apology as the opportunity to attack Trump yet again and push the narrative. Speaking of saying something again and again to make it true, immigrant, illegal immigrant, they're the same thing, no difference. That's how it's covered. And so the use of the word racism forces most people to defer. This is the Shelby Steele culture of deference argument. Defer, 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 and you just appease your way right into the gulag because the left will continue to push. You defer, then we know where your weak spot is, and we're going to punch through. And that's what Trump doesn't do, and that has them losing their collective minds, and I do mean collective. Which is a great segue to our next guest, Matt Margolis, columnist for PJ Media. He's got a new book out, Trumping Obama, How President Trump Saved Us from Barack Obama's Legacy, because I would say, as I said, oppose Obama, racist. Support Trump, racist. They've, they were beta testing this in the good times when Obama was president, and they've perfected it for use against President Trump, or at least so they think. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me on.
So, what about this? So, obviously, so much of President Obama's candidacy and presidency was bound up in him being the first black president of the United States, and so, people have short memories, but I remember that the arguments that are being used against people who support Trump were the same arguments being used against people who opposed Obamacare. You oppose Obamacare because you're racist, not because you don't want the government to be directing your healthcare choices. You want to see your doctor. You oppose Obama's tax increases because you're racist, and so on and so forth. And Trump will not defer to those who engage in name calling, no matter how vicious.
Yeah, this has been going on my whole lifetime. I mean, the left called Reagan a racist. They called Bush 41 and Bush 43 racist. John McCain was a racist. They love him now, but he was a racist for daring to run against Barack Obama. I mean, you think that after 40 years or so that they would have a new line of attack, but they don't. They got nothing.
You addressed what we were talking about earlier, though, where lies sort of become truth, I think, in this idea that Obama had a scandal-free presidency, which I believe is the subject of your book. Tell us a little bit about that and what, in terms of short memories and memory loss, what are average people surprisingly forgetting about scandals under the Obama administration?
I wrote a previous book called The Scandalous Presidency of Barack Obama, which detailed over 30 scandals in his administration that the media has conveniently forgotten about. And it's unfortunate, but it definitely is an example of what we're seeing today in the reverse. The media was so quiet about Obama and the bad things that are going on there. And it's like after 8 years of being asleep, they've woken up and decided to just go full on trying to scandalize everything about Donald Trump. And it's another exhausting thing because, people I think don't, I don't know, people seem to want the media to tell them what they want to believe. But, there's people on both sides of the aisle that need to be catered to. I think some unbiased reporting would be nice for a change.
Again, the new book titled How President Trump Saved Us from Barack Obama's Legacy. So what is the overriding Obama legacy that you're arguing Trump is saving us from?
Well, Trump hasn't just gone after one thing. He's gone after so many different things that he's gone after Obamacare. I mean, Obamacare is nearly dead at this point. Domestic policy, foreign policy, immigration. He's reversed so many different things. So there's a lot of stuff that's covered in the book that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily aware of. That shows just how effective Trump has been at actually fulfilling his promise of reversing Obama's presidency.
Is there a unifying philosophy that President Obama pursued? Policies that flow from a particular worldview or philosophy. and a competing philosophy that Trump is pursuing that are consistent throughout all of those areas you just described?
I think the most unifying thing would be the fact that it's a lot of big government stuff. I mean, Obama was the regulator in chief, constantly adding new regulations, putting the government more and more into our lives. And we've seen Donald Trump do the exact opposite. He's gone through, he's been deregulating at an incredible pace. He's been rolling back various policies. I mean, as I said before, Obamacare, a lot of unconstitutional acts of Obama, redefining sex and gender and all these things. He's done an amazing job of doing that, and a very comprehensive job.
What would you say to his critics, though, who say while he has dismantled a lot of Obamacare, he was not able to deliver fully on on his campaign promise? And in terms of the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it, that was another big issue for him, and has not delivered on that.
Well, it's true that, I mean, a lot of presidents have a hard time enacting their agenda, and Trump has definitely received some pushback from within his own party, and you need to get people in your own party on board on a lot of this stuff in order to be successful at it. I think that even conservatives don't want Trump to just simply be just like Obama in using his executive pen to get things done. I think there's a constitutional way to approach these policies and promises, and I'd much rather see him try and find a way to do it that way than essentially expanding upon Obama's imperial presidency approach.
How did you receive the back and forth between Obama and Trump in the last couple of days in reaction to the shootings over the weekend? Obama not mentioning Trump by name, but certainly inferring he was referencing Trump when he called on Americans to, quote, soundly reject language coming out of the mouths of any of our leaders that feeds a climate of fear and hatred or normalizes racist sentiments. Trump responding, believing President Obama was talking about him. Did George Bush ever condemn President Obama after Sandy Hook? President Obama had 32 mass shootings during his reign. Not many people said Obama is out of control, so just you're pushing back not just on the protocol of former presidents criticizing current ones, but also just on the sort of the substance of what happened during Obama's tenure and what's happened under Trump's too. These mass shootings.
I thought that was the perfect response. Obama is very different than other past presidents who have taken a step back and just let his successor, do what they're going to do and just stay quiet about it. I think there's a lesson to be learned here that, everyone thinks that Obama's this classy guy, but he really isn't. I think that was a particularly low blow, kind of feeding into this whole idea that, Trump is a racist and he's fueling the fire on all this stuff. I mean, that kind of rhetoric doesn't help anybody. Obama was never the uniter or healer that he claimed he was going to be, and this is just another example of even after leaving the White House that he's no different.
He is Matt Margolis. He's a columnist for PJ Media. Check out his most